Hi guys, I'm Sam from the Unity of Life and welcome back to my channel. So if you watched my last video, you'll know we've been talking about how to reintroduce animals into the wild and how you look after them when they're sick and they do. And they've come from the wild in the first place. So that was a fox in the last video. And in this one, we're going to be looking at the Grey Wolf Action Plan. So there are bits that I won't go through because there's graphs, and graphs are boring and they're very hard and really complicated to get your head around, and I don't want to stress anybody out or have their heads exploding, okay? Because yeah, your head might explode. Nobody wants that, right? So let's do this. So numerous species in the wild populations are facing a variety of threats which are decreasing their numbers dramatically. We are generally that threat. So many different species are being bred in captivity to hopefully reintroduce them back into the wild populations and help increase their numbers. One important method for any animal conservation is exude conservation. Exude conservation is a technique that breeds captive animal species to help reintroduce or sustain or increase wild populations. This technique uses data known as stud books, which we've already talked about, which contain information on an individual family tree. The stud book is important to have so that conservationists can minimize breeding in various animal populations. Exude conservation is very important to prevent animals from becoming extinct. So this report, so everything we're going to talk about is going to focus on the grey wolf from a breeding and conservation perspective. It will discuss the conservation status, distribution, population size, trends, habitats, ecology, their behaviour, particularly scent marking, primary threats, captive population, evolution, migration methods, introduction, pre-release and preparation and release methods. So let's get into this. So let's have a look at a little bit of background about a grey wolf, or a Canis lupus, it is known as. Remember, a domesticated dog is a Canis lupus familiaris. And in the last video, we were talking about a Vulpus vulpus, which is a red fox. Right. So the conservation status. The grey wolf appears in both Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of CITES. So what does that mean? So CITES, again, it's like the IUCN Red List. It tells you the status of different animals, but it uses these things known as appendices. So an appendix entry depends on which country the wolf is found in, as well as the risks faced and controls in place. There are 68 different countries where the grey wolf is found. However, only 4 of the 68 countries have the grey wolf in Appendix 1. Appendix 1 covers animals threatened with extinction. So you really don't want to be in Appendix 1. Any of these animals, you do not want them in Appendix 1. And Appendix 2 covers animals that are not necessarily threatened with extinction, but trade of the animals needs to be controlled to increase the animals' survival chances, because some animals, unfortunately, you can be trading them or parts of them. So, the International Union of Conservation of Nature, so the IUCN Red List, it's probably the first time I've actually said that right, has marked the grey wolf as being of least concern, meaning the population of grey wolves is a stable one and it's not threatened in any way. Although the IUCN is stating that the wolf status is least concerned, they're suggesting that the grey wolf is subject to in situ conservation protocol. So in situ conservation means that wolves are outside their natural habitats for protection and relocated for conservation purposes. So distribution, population, size and trends. get into this. The distribution of grey wolves was once widely spread over many European countries and North America. However, as the human world began to change, so did the wolf's world. The growth of agriculture led to the increase of livestock. The grey wolf was then perceived as a threat to the public and the livestock. The wolf was seen as a competitor to the wild game, so wild animals leading the grey wolf to be hunted and becoming extinct in many countries it once roamed, UK being one of them. The population size of grey wolves varies between and within countries. For example, by the end of the 1990s, Croatia was estimated to have about 50 individuals remaining. However, by 2008, this number has risen to 200. Following the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Ukraine in 1986, the grey wolf population in Chernobyl exclusion zone is doing extremely well. There's a lot of animals that live in the exclusion zone that are wild and they are thriving, and they don't seem to have radiation poisoning, and it leaves a lot of behaviourists and biologists very baffled by this. And obviously there's been human interference because we can't go into there too often, and we have to wear these masks and tanks and suits and stuff to make sure we're not going to have too much exposure to the radiation. A method in which the trends of a wolf can be monitored effectively is through the use of camera traps. Camera traps are a non-invasive technique which can help to gather a vast amount of data over many years. So basically, they've got these sensors on these cameras, and when movement, we've got them in our garden for the squirrels. When movement triggers it, it'll take a picture straight away. So the habitat, the ecology and the behaviour of grey wolf. The grey wolf habitat consists of mainly large, dense forests. However, due to demand for new roads and more farm life, the forests that many packs of grey wolf roamed are being torn down to make way for these human influences, because we're just douchebags and we need a huge wake-up call, because you take out one animal from an ecosystem, the whole ecosystem collapses, and yes, that does affect you self-arrogant moron. Anyway, additionally, wolves can be used to help monitor the ecology of other animals, although some dude reported that the change in the landscape has a huge impact on wolves. A study concluded on Canadian caribou, so a common prey animal of the grey wolf, suggested that the development landscapes assist the wolves in gaining access to areas that historically they had no way of reaching. There are many different behaviours exhibited by wolves. Scent marking is the most important behaviour to wolves. It is a hugely important method of communication for these animals. So in the best year that has ever existed on this planet, and I'm totally not biased, but in 1998, 2 neighbouring wolf packs were observed. Behaviours such as males lifting their legs and urinating, then scratching the ground, were detected. All the adult wolves were observed scent marking their territory. However, it was the dominant male and female who was scent marking the most. It was noticed that the subordinate males would occasionally scent mark, but subordinate females never did. Scent marking is also important to lone wolves. Although lone wolves have been observed scent marking, they rarely do it too close to another wolf's pack. Another pack's territory, because they don't want to be disturbed, because it's like 1 versus 20, right? So one reason the lone wolf engages in scent marking is to attract a female lone wolf so that they can mate and start new packs. It helps them find each other. So what are the primary threats? So The biggest threat to the grey wolf is us. Unfortunately, one huge threat in the 2020 was that, how do I say this and be polite and not swear? That yellow flippin', well, it's not even yellow, he was orange. What was that? That orange flippin' moron who had a flippin' wig, this self-righteous known as Donald Trump, who is in charge of America. What the hell were you lot thinking? I don't know by electing him. I know the elections were rigged and that was partly Russia's fault, but he was a huge threat to these wolves. Like, he was wiping them out. She's like, you know what? I don't care that there's this conservation in place for these wolves, these animals. You can go and kill as many as you want. And I kid you not, but hundreds of wolves were wiped out in 2 days. Okay, that means that a lot of genetics was taken out. It was completely wiped out because one narcissistical moron said that it was okay to do this. This thick narcissistical moron, I may add, that does not know how to tie his own shoelaces. Okay, I mean, come on, a toddler would have done a better job at ruling that country. Sorry for that rant, but that guy really gets on my last nerve. Anyway, so causing humans to hunt, so it's human intolerance that is a huge threat to these wolves, and it's causing the humans to hunt them to the point of almost extinction. There are protection laws that have been put into place in some countries like America to restrict the hunting of wolves, to enable the population to be stabilised. However, recently these laws have been removed. This is what I was talking about with this stupid idiot making hunting wolves a lot easier than it once was. Captive populations, evaluation and migration measures. So they are 391 different institutes, so these are like zoos, in 6 different regions across the world that have captive populations of zoonological information and management system. That's what it's called. That system is called the ZIMS. It's a database, and that's where all these stud books are found, and zoos have access to this all over the world. So these regions include Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, North and South America. And some of the countries that have captive wolf populations are the United States of America, the UK, so over here, Chile, Australia, India, and Morocco. And that's just to name a few, because the list went on and on and on. So there's a lot of graphs that I'm not going to get into, basically, but some institutions housing captive wolf populations are in countries where the grey wolf is native, and these include Estonia, Latvia, the USA, and Norway. Again, that's only to name a few. The reintroduction of these captive animals back into the wild would require large distances to be travelled. However, for breeding opportunities, there can be less travel involved. Many of these institutes having captive populations are quite close together, which obviously is handy when you're trying to swap animals to breed. So, wolves in the wild generally only reach about 6 years old, 8 if they're lucky. This is due to many factors, which include fighting rival wolf packs, diseases, hunting, and vehicle strikes. So let's get them run over. When compared to wolves in captivity, the life expectancy is more than doubled. In captivity, wolves can live up to about 16 years of age, okay? In fact, in Wales, there was a wolf that was in her 20s. Yeah, you heard me. Her 20s. She was ancient. But she was absolutely beautiful. I think she was actually the world's oldest wolf as well at the time. That was a couple of years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if she's now passed on. So the main reason for an increased life expectancy of wolves in captivity are access to veterinary care, no viral packs, and protection from humans. So life expectancy in captivity is not even affected by the gender. So it's not like males or female live longer than females or females live longer than males. That just isn't an influence. So there was one graph, which, like I said, I'm not going to get too much into it, but it shows the course of death and the gender of the wolves from which were roads, kills, so they were ran over, and this was actually the biggest cause of death for both males and females, with more males being killed. It shows that the wolves were the ages that were when they were killed, and that was between the ages of being a puppy to being 4 years old. Which is really the wolves that you need to try and keep alive to be able to breed into other captivities. So, like you might expect in some animals, weight is different between the genders, and that's the case with wolves. So the weight of an adult wolf can differ slightly for females and males. It's not very much. However, it's not very much. So male wolves in the wild can weigh between 35 to 60 kilograms. So the lightest they're going to be is like your golden retriever or labrador. And the females can weigh between 25 to 50 kilograms. So there's not really much difference there. When compared to a wolf in captivity, there is a huge difference. The lightest captive wolves are generally the youngest or oldest, because when you're old, as you get older, you lose a lot of conditioning, you do lose weight. When you're really, really fragile and old animals, not so much humans generally gain it, which is really annoying. With individuals tending to weigh between 10 to 15 kilograms, so a hell of a lot less than wolves in the wild, and the heaviest individuals in captivity were between 30 and 40 kilograms. So the weight of the wolves in captivity are ideal for them to be introduced into wild. The weight of the wolf in the wild may vary sometimes, as a wolf may only have one successful hunt a week. And the lighter, older wolves found in captivity would not generally live to that age in the wild. So it's really hard to be able to compare the weights of captive wolves to those that are wild. So we're gonna skip all this because it's all to do with graphs, and we don't need to know about the graphs because, like I said, graphs can be boring and really hard and really complicated to get your head around. So, to reintroduction and the pre-release preparation. So this is obviously the main event. So factors that need to be taken into consideration to be able to reintroduce the wolves back into the wild are their personalities, which we've said time and time again. So hunting skills and fitness levels. So we want them to be bold animals. We want them to be quite brave in a way. We don't want them to be timid and shy when we're reintroducing them. So one form of enrichment for wolves in a captive environment is the wolf's enclosure should have different smells rubbed into different areas. In a previous experiment, these scents were placed into 4 categories. So they did an experiment where they rubbed loads of different scents into an enclosure, and these were things like manufactured, which was like perfumes and motor oils, so very human influenced. Carnivores, which was to do with like mountain lions and black bears, and that was using their feces. Herbivores, again using feces, but of a horse and a sheep. And food, which was like salt pork and tuna oil, because wolves do fish and they are really good at it. So the wolves react to the strongest to the manufacturer's scent by rubbing themselves quite frankly on the scent, because it's really, really weird, and it's something your dog does, okay? So in wolf communities, the stinkier, the smellier the wolf is, the more dominant they are, right? And you'll probably notice that your dogs will like to roll in things like fox poop, and they like to be really, really smelly, and they don't like when you take that stench away and you give them a bath, because then you're decreasing their value in the pack, if you will. So The carnivore scent received the second highest level of interaction from the wolves. The wolves only rubbed once for the salted pork and took no interest whatsoever in the tuna oil or the herbivore scent. Perhaps this would be detrimental to a successful hunter, as the scent would be identified by their prey. So, one form of enrichment that could be conducted is similar to the aforementioned study, so the study that we have just talked about rubbing the scents into the enclosure. However, the scents could be those of the wild wolves' natural prey, as well as other wolves and other animals they may encounter in their natural habitat, such as coyotes. The wolves need to be able to recognize the different scents so that they know what they need to hunt. So the introduction to the scent of other wolves is necessary because when another wolf finds the feces in its territory, it will pick up on the scent of the wolf who was there. Wolves can identify from another wolf's feces whether the wolf belonged to their pack or a rival pack. And we're going to talk more in another video about scent in wolves and their fantastic noses. So if the wolf is from a rival pack, knowing the scent can help the wolves avoid a fight, which can often lead to the death, which is very detrimental to their health, in case you didn't know that. The wolves can also tell the age of another wolf, the gender, and how long it has been since the wolf was there. Furthermore, wolves can determine from the urine the reproductive status of a wolf, which is very handy to know if you're looking for a female to mate with. Wolves use scent to communicate with their pack members and other packs. The alpha male wolf will exhibit scent marking behaviours more often than subordinates, which we've already mentioned, and he does this to mark out his territory to the rival wolf packs, as well as to remind his pack that he is the one in charge. Ergo, he has the highest breeding status, therefore he's the only one who should be breeding. With his one chosen female. So basically, dad's in charge, so is mom. So you've got to do as you were told, basically. The alpha female may also exhibit similar scent marking behaviours, but not as much as their male counterpart, because remember I've said in the previous video that testosterone has a stronger smell than female hormones. There are three main ways that they scent mark their territory, and it is by using feces, urine and ground scratching, because wolves and dogs, they have scent glands in their paw pads. So all of which leaves behind pheromones. So in case people don't know what pheromones are, they're these external hormones in a way that some animals can smell, and it basically they can get a lot of information from these other animals, such as that they're ready to mate, whether they're female, if they're male, etc. And basically it's a scent that turns them on in a way, and humans do. It has been known that we do excrete pheromones, and that we subconsciously, some of the time, we can smell those pheromones, and we like our mate's genetics to be similar to ours, not exactly the same, but similar. Which is a little bit concerning, because we find them the most attractive, apparently. But there's a whole bunch of studies on that, and that's not what we're talking about. So if you want to know more about that, then I suggest you do your own research on that. So wolves will scent mark more frequently during the breeding season, and continue to do so when the pups have been born. So often males in captivity do not put much effort into impressing their female partners, and this is why breeding any animal can be really, really hard, and sometimes they will bring in a rival male into zoos just to get that breeding male to impress his female a bit more. So they're more willing to reproduce them, as they have no reason. So the reason that they're not really into impressing them is because there's no reason, as there's no male competition. So that's why sometimes you bring in this other male competition. So the captive wolves with the sense of wolves from other local institutes may be encouraged to perform all natural behaviours the alpha male would normally display during the breeding season. So basically what that would say is, instead of maybe getting another physical male into the enclosure to try and get this female and male to breed, you would just get some fur or some feces or some urine from another institute that have got other packs of wolves from their males, and then you would put them in the enclosure. So he thinks there's been other males around, and he obviously wants the people to remember she's his and she can only mate with him. So from all the data that I'd found in this document that I haven't gone all the way through, because like I said, it will blow your mind and it'll give you a headache, and nobody wants that. The captive populations of the wolves are lighter than their wild counterparts, since their muscles are underdeveloped in captivity because they're not doing as much as they would be in the wild. So a way of building their muscle in the captivity could involve hanging meat from a tree just high enough to encourage the wolves to jump and receive it, because remember, muscle weighs more than fat. A further enrichment technique could be using a robot to drag the meat behind it to stimulate their natural hunting behaviour. And once the wolf has caught the meat, the robot can release it, leaving the wolves to enjoy their kill. It's already dead, but they don't know that. And with the wolves having to run after the robot, this will help them to build up the muscle, so that when they are reintroduced into the wild, they'll have enough muscular strength to hunt and take down their prey. During this period, health checks need to obviously be conducted, because you want to make sure that your wolves are the fittest and healthiest that they can possibly can. So we're going to talk about the release method now, and then obviously we are then at the end of this video, which a lot of you were probably like, oh thank God, because I bet a lot of you didn't realise just how complicated and how much work can go into a lot of these animal processes, because they are obviously very intelligent creatures and we don't give them enough credit for that. So release methods. The decision has now been made, hypothetically, to release a pack of wolves into the wild, as wolves generally live in packs, leaving behind some of the sexual mature offspring in the institution to keep the variation of genetics there in captivity. The offspring that is left behind will comprise of individuals who will not have had a chance to breed into the wild, breed they were released into the wild with the rest of their family. So the animals in the pack that will be reintroduced into the wild will be the alpha male and female, and the rest of their offspring. So the alpha pair will be about 4 or 5 years old of age, because they will have already had quite a few offspring by this point in time, meaning that they will have obviously quite a decent pack size, which will help when they have to hunt and find their own territory, because the more wolves, the more likely they are to gain a territory. The rest of the pack will be about 1 or 2 years of age. Furthermore, removing the alphas from the institutes prevents overbreeding in captivity and releases different genetic material into the wild, because some of the offspring that you release with the pack, when you release them into the wild, they can go off and form their own pack, and therefore they're breeding with wolves from the wild, and they're getting this genetic variety and diversity that wasn't there to begin with. After studying the information in some of the figures from above, if release sites are long distances, air travel would be considered. This reduces unnecessary stress for the wolves, and the vet will be consulted regarding the anaesthetic for transportation. In another video, we will have a look at the transportation law for animals. Anyway, a soft release method is the best option. So the decision for a soft release option is because the wolves will have to travel long distances. Using a soft release method allows the wolves to recover from the journey and chance to acclimatize to their new environment. The soft release site will be a temporary enclosure that is set in the environment that the wolves will be released into. Taking into consideration the data in Figure 4, the release site will be as far away as possible from any roads. The pack will also be moved in between the breeding seasons, and this is to provide the pack with a chance to get used to life in the wild without extra stress bringing up any puppies. And soon after the arrival, the pups will be anaesthetized, so they'll be knocked out, and they'll have radio tracking collars that will fall off after a year, and they'll be attached on them so they can gain some data on them and they can keep an eye on them, make sure they're still alive, and they'll do the final health checks to be conducted as well. The release can be monitored and the data can be collected to assist the further future reintroductions. The pack will be maintained and monitored in the temporary enclosure for 1 week, giving them time to get used to their surroundings and acclimatise and becoming used to their new environment. During this time, the video tracking collars will be tested. When satisfied, the gates to the enclosure will be opened and the wolves will be released from captivity and the long-term monitoring can begin. So that's all I have for today. You're probably thinking, thank God, because that took half an hour of me just putting it on there. If you've learned something and you feel like others would learn something, then share this video. If you haven't already subscribed and you would like to subscribe, then you can click on my face. You still have the opportunity to subscribe and click on the notification bell and you will be notified every Wednesday and every Saturday when I upload a video. And if you want to see any of the other zoo sort of animal content that I've been covering on this channel, you can click on this playlist and you can check all that out. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.